Hi everyone, this short video is to highlight some recent small improvements to Snap Plus version 3 in terms of how the navigation is set up and how you can interact with some of the tables. These are things that probably wouldn't be covered in some of our bigger instructional videos, but they're really nice to know about as you learn some more of these tips and tricks. So the first thing I want to highlight is here on the home page, we've added some really nice options that allow you to interact with this table, search and filter much more quickly. So first let's look on the right side. We have this gear menu that's been added to this table and many other tables in version 3. When you click that gear or settings menu, you'll see in this case we have three options. We have filters, we have the option to show and hide columns, and then we have the wrap text option. Let's start with filters. Now, instead of only searching by the farm name, you can actually select any of the columns in this table to search for. So maybe you happen to know the owner's name, but maybe not the exact farm name, or you're looking for plans that have one specific primary admin. So you can choose to select any of these options, and that will add a search bar at the top for you, allowing you to type in an owner name. So here I'm going to start typing in my own name, Hava, and this will filter down my table to show only plans where my name is in that owner column. Other things we can do here are filter our table by the user group. So if you've started to use this user group feature and you have many different plans, you can filter down to only look at the plans that are shared with a specific group by selecting it from this drop-down menu. We have a few other updates here on the fields page. We have added summaries of the active fields, including the number of fields and the cropping acres, and the inactive fields to the top of the fields page. Notice too that we now display, next to the display inactive fields toggle, the total number. So that's a reminder to you that if you're to turn this toggle on, you would see 2 inactive fields now displayed in your table. One other thing that we've added here is the ability to update multiple rows in this table at once. So if we look at the example of the John Doe subfarm, let's imagine that we wanted to fill out the information that all of these fields in the subfarm are rented fields, and then add the landowner name. We can filter to the John Doe farm by selecting it from our subfarm menu, and now we see our table, all of the fields in this subfarm. And if we click Update All Displayed Data, we get a pop-up allowing us to choose what we're updating. In our case, let's start with agreement. And we can indicate that all of the rows in the table that I currently see, those fields are all rented. And then I have the option to add the additional landowner information all at once. Once I click Submit here, you can see that my information for the agreement and landowner column has all been updated at one time, which saves me the need to go through every single one of these rows and add that name and selection individually. You'll notice on this same page that we also have the same gear menu like I showed you on the home page, and this has its own set of filters that allow you to select any one of the columns in the table and add a search or a filter on that column. So let's take a look at county as an example. I can select the checkbox next to county, and then I receive a filter option up here with a drop-down menu that shows me any counties that are associated with the fields in my plan. If I select Lafayette County, I can see here that I have 3 fields that are in Lafayette County, and I can work with those in that filtered view. To get rid of the filter, I click the X button here next to the county bar. One other feature that was requested at a lot of our trainings this summer and fall was the ability to see the most recent or the latest years at the top of this table. And this is especially relevant when you're working with a plan that has many years of data, and otherwise you have to do a lot of scrolling in order to see where your data is for the most recent years that you might be planning. You can turn on that setting by going again to the gear menu and clicking reverse order when you're here in the field view on the management page. And you'll notice that what that does is it brings my calendar year, that's the latest calendar year, 2028, is now showing at the top of my table. Another thing that's new is that we've added this little button next to the Calculate Erosion and Phosphorus Index button that allows you to calculate all fields. So previously when you press this button, it was just calculating soil loss and phosphorus index for this one rotation on this field. Now you have the option to calculate across the board and have all of those values populate for all of the fields that have valid rotations defined on this farm. The next feature I'd like to show you is the ability to turn on and off the text wrapping, which can be really nice depending on the size screen you have and how you'd like the data to display. Here I'm working on a relatively large screen, but if I were to take my browser window and make it more narrow, you can see that certain rows in my table have the text wrapped on multiple lines. Sometimes this is really nice because it still allows us to read all of the text in this given cell and see what it says. However, if you're hoping to see more rows on your page at a given time, you may choose to turn off the text wrapping so that this tightens up the page, and now we just see an abbreviated version of the data that's in these rows. So the text is no longer being wrapped, but you can see we now have narrower rows that allow us to see more on the page at a given time. One other update we've made to navigation in Snap Plus happens when you have a screen that's too narrow to fit these navigation buttons that run along the top of the screen. If I make my browser window more narrow, as in this example, you see that my top navigation updates. So now I have a menu of the pages on the left side that opens up as a drop-down when I click on this page name. If I'd like to go to the Fields page, I select it from the list, and then Snap Plus navigates me to the field page, and I see a reminder here of which page I'm currently on, and can select the other pages from this menu. The other reminder I'd like to give about navigation is that most browsers have a built-in zoom function, so depending on the size of your screen, you may find it convenient to zoom in or out using your browser zoom or using your keyboard until you get a screen size and a text size that works for you. Snap Plus version 3 is responsive, which means that the buttons and the tables will adjust to the zoom level and the size of your browser window.